What's going on, guys? Army-Firedawg is back again. How have y'all been? Today I have the review video for you of the AudioQuest AF180mk2. This is their one step under their flagship IM, and I have really enjoyed my 2 weeks with these. And they definitely have an interesting sound that at least I personally have not yet heard before, and I'm quite excited to share my thoughts with you. But as always, I like to start with the construction of said product, and then I'll work my way down from there. So the construction of the AF180mk2 is, as you can see, it is all plastic, or vast majority of plastic. Now, that is to be expected, or let me rephrase, that is common in a product that's within this price point, which is approximately $370. Now, regardless of it being plastic, it is very, very durable. At least, I've not done like super testing, but just from its appearance and past experience with products feeling the same, it is quite durable. I have mowed the lawn in these things, I've pressure washed my back deck, and though I couldn't find on the website that it says it any waterproof or any sweatproof at all, I have not had any issues, like I said, doing some light exercise. Nothing super strenuous or super making me sweat, but like I said, pressure washing, mowing my lawn, etc. But I'll talk on that here momentarily. The only issue I do have with the construction, and it's something that hasn't came up, but it's just something about it just has me concerned, and that is the horn. The horn is the same style as you'd see on like the West Tone and the Sures, as in it's very, very small, and that by itself doesn't concern me. It's just something about the construction of which and how it feels. Like the plastic of this just doesn't feel quite firm, and it was to such a degree that when I was just putting on my personal Comply memory foam tips, I was honestly worried about this thing cracking just doing that motion to get the tips on. Like I said, it's not creaked, it's not done anything, it's just something about how it looks and feels in my hand that does have me concerned. And that's really the only issue I did personally foreshadow. I didn't have just a foreshadow concern, is just that of the horn. Moving on, the cable is detachable via a MMCX connector, so also similar to that of the Shure's. Actually just the Shure. Weston used 2-pin if I'm not mistaken, but very, very universal, easily changeable, and by far nothing close to proprietary. So if you have your own aftermarket cable that you enjoy and you like, no, this is not a bad cable, and I'll touch on that here in just a second. Just stating that you can use your own cable, or heaven forbid something does happen to this, you can very easily and cost effectively, per your own budget, replace said cable. Now, as for the cable itself, it is actually quite durable and impressive feeling. It's a very solid feeling cable. From the split to its termination is a braided, it's a 2-cord braided, so you have positive and negative, and it's intertwined. Now, similar to just about every other braided cable, and as I've said in past IM reviews, I don't know why it is, it's just something that is. Something about a braided cable tangles like nothing I've ever seen before. This thing, just from here to here, tangles all the time. Every time I pull it, it don't matter if I'm putting it out of its case, or obviously a pocket's going to do it, but seemingly just laying down it'll tangle itself. Now, is it hard to untangle? Absolutely not. It's just every time I pick these things up, I did have to untangle them. Moving from the split to its 3.5mm jack, this isn't like a sheathed cloth kind of shielding. That is, I got no complaints with it. It didn't tangle for me personally at all, and additionally, it didn't have any kind of microphonics when it was brushing against my clothes. Regardless, again, sitting on the back deck pressure washing, mowing the lawn, nothing. I never heard any kind of microphonics at all from it, which is something I do have experience with on products, honestly, costing a couple $100 more than this. So that is actually a very nice note on Audiofly's behalf. So my thoughts on the product's overall construction, is actually quite nice. The conscious style is, I think, a very solid option to go with. They're very lightweight. I didn't touch on that, but these are extremely lightweight. When I had these in my ears, I truthfully just forgot they were there. I would very comfortably walk around with, even without music playing, just using them. Actually, I can touch about that. The isolation, I can use them just for earplugs. These isolate when using, well, at least in mine, that's the only tips I personally use, the Comply memory foam tips. They're the T100s, I believe, is what I'm using. Very isolating. I mean, the lawnmower I had, I was able to listen to the YouTube video at a comfortable volume, not maxed out. And though you can still hear the lawnmower in the background, can't completely drown that out, it was a very manageable level. So if you're looking for something to really drown out your surroundings without going active noise canceling, I really think, in terms of just that and musical enjoyment, which I'll touch later, definitely consider these. Like, these are some of the best isolating IEMs, price per quality ratio, that I have heard in a good while. Now, moving on to its comfort. As I kind of mentioned earlier, the comfort of these is awesome. I have worn these in several times for 5, 6. I think I had one listening time that was a little bit more than 6 hours at one given time frame, but no issues. I never had to adjust them. I never had to take them out and kind of shake out my ears, if that makes any sense. Like when you're having an earplug in and you kind of have to move it around, circulate it. I don't know if that's a term, but hopefully you know what I'm trying to talk about. I didn't have to do that at all with the AF180mk2s. They just sit perfectly. As you can see, they fit very nicely. Even without the the wraparound, they stay in very, very well. And then obviously if you put the wrap around the ear, then you have that much more security. So I would contact Audiofly if you're wanting to use these for a pair of workout IMs, especially if you sweat a lot. But if you don't sweat, not myself, so I can't do this, and you want to use these for like a heavy workout or run or something like that, at least from my personal experience, they never had any issues remotely close to falling out. I already mentioned the isolation, but I was able to sleep. You can sleep on these, in fact. They are so flush with your ear. You can lay on a pillow, and yeah, the pressure will push in on your ear a little bit, but it wasn't uncomfortable, and it was just I'm rambling on, but I have no complaints with the AF180mk2's comfort. They did a fantastic job. Now, moving on to what you all care the most about, more than likely, and that is, how do the Audiofly AF180mk2s sound? So, for $370, these actually sound, or they have aspects that really impressed me for their price point, but on others, they fell in line with other products that cost roughly $350 to $400. They fell closely within that expectations. That's actually a good word I was looking for earlier, is expectations. So one thing I will say about these is, and as I mentioned at the start, these actually have a sound signature, which is something I have personally never heard before, at least from memory. And what I mean by that is these are an overall cold sounding IM, not bright, but a little towards the cold side. But they are very musical. I know, I got it. Believe me, I got it. But like, these were just wonderful to just sit back and enjoy your music with. I definitely can't call them analytical, because there's several times on several different pieces where notes just, I'm either not hearing them, or they don't sound as refined as more audiophile analytical pieces I know would make said products sound. But as a musical aspect, I truthfully just enjoyed listening to these, especially on brass instruments, and really anything that's higher pitched, but really on the brass instruments, most specifically trumpets. And it honestly was not until I started writing the review for this that I really had a song come up in my MyMix YouTube playlist that's recommended for you, and it appeared, and it just played, and I was like, oh snap. I actually had to listen to it twice over so I can fully enjoy it. And it was Liber Tango by Aster Pizzoglia. and Oyvind Westby, if I'm saying their names correctly. It's a female performing or playing the piece, pardon me, but the resonance and just the frequency and just the overall tonality of that trumpet, oh boy, did these excel in. And I listened to other instrumental pieces. I referenced Crescent Moon Dance by Mikazuki Nomai in my written review as the two pieces that really stood out to me. There's several other ones. There's He's a Pirate, A Moon-Filled Sky by Tenmon, and several others that of higher pitched, more musical pieces that really accent what these beautiful IMs could really do, or rather excel at. Now, though I've pretty much only talked about the treble aspect, and that's cutting ahead to the next section, the overall technical aspects of the Audiofly AF180mk2s are truthfully fairly impressive for its respective price range, which is, as I said again, roughly $370. If you translate it from the $650 Australian dollar. But when you play something, again, mainly instrumental, there is a lot of energy transfer. If it's on a koto, a violin, trumpet, something like that, you are just like, you get all that excitement and that sparkle and extension and the airiness, especially, that these really are impressive with. And I used the piece Tenmon, and I don't know who the author is. It's just on A Sound of Life. I'm drawing a blank on what the original name is. But when you're listening through these, every single koto has its own space, and it's something I really encourage you to listen to. Now, moving on to the mids, and I kind of clamped its introductory and terrible together. I know I did, but these really are more colder, treble focused, or biased, rather, I would use that term. Now, as for the mids, is very neutral to flat. There is a little bit more of a bias to higher tonality or higher pitches, I guess is the correct term, a higher pitch than what I think is true on the mid-range. But regardless if you're listening to males, females, and two artists I link are Disturbed's and The Sound of Silence and Adele's Love in the Dark, two of my reference pieces, both of which the rest of the instrumentals, the tonality of those instruments and the pitch of those instruments is definitely leaned more towards the treble. They make them sound more colder, brighter than what they should sound. But as for just vocals, very clean, very, very accurate, very just truthful. I'm horrible at describing these things, but I do my best for you all. But they just sound really like linear, and they sound like I'm talking to you, if I can put that in there, with the caveat of, especially in the male vocals, such as Nathaniel Rateliff's SOB. I use that one in particular because of all the clapping and snapping. These really don't do good with body, as in you don't get that fleshy sound when you listen through these. Vocals are great, but there's just no or Trace Atkins I can use. There's no raspiness in that voice. Like I said, when you hear the clap, it sounds fake. It almost sounds synthesized. It doesn't sound like a real clap. It doesn't sound like a real snap. It's just, that was really a drawback for me personally in the mids. Though yes, the overall bit is neutral to flat. That lack of, honestly, about any body kind of off-putting me on a personal subjective note. Now, onto the bass line. So the bass is the heartbeat of the piece. It's the aspect of an audio product that companies have to walk a very tight rope with doing. If the bass is too hard, it kind of drowns everything, and everything kind of sounds muddled and unrefined. And if the bass is too little, the overall sound of your piece is too light and untechnical. Now, in terms of the Audiofly AF180mk2s, they teeter more on the latter side. They're definitely, though when you look at the frequency graph, there is a slight bump in the mid-range, into the bass range. I guess the mid and upper bass line, I would still call these a bass light IM because you have bass. It definitely doesn't have an exaggerated decay, but it's definitely not tight either. You know you're listening to a bass song, so if you're listening to kind of techno pieces such as Freaks by Timmy Trumpet and several others to list a few, I mean, you can enjoy it. It just doesn't have any of that slam that you're hoping for. So that there's definitely minimal sub bass. I'd say to that mid bass line and upper is about as far down as it's going to reasonably dip and give you that impact. My biggest personal issue I had with its bass line is honestly not the technicality or the performance of the bass per se. It's the bias towards the treble aspect. Is that whenever whatever you're listening to, and I linked Unravel, that's being performed by Jonathan Young, and Into the Coals by Buffalo Jones. Both of these songs are more lower pitched. Both the artist and the piece as well has a lot of bass drops that drop down fairly low. When listening to the Audiofly AF180mk2s, things just kind of sounded more pushed higher. Like it just didn't. I couldn't get full enjoyment because these didn't sound like the songs I use a lot. So, and that'll lead me to my conclusion of the Audiofly AF180mk2s is that if you like more colder sounding IEMs and you want a musical sounding, not to use to analyze what you're listening to, but just to enjoy what you're listening to, then I really think you should try the Audiofly AF180mk2s, especially if you like and listen to almost exclusively or mainly instrumental and classical music, because that is really what these excel at. I don't think these are going to be for everyone. Like I said, if you like that hard bass, I think though you will enjoy them, you just won't be able to maximize what these will be, what in my opinion really excelled at. So if you're classical lovers, or those of you who really enjoy listening to especially brass instruments, I cannot stress how good these, at least to me in my ears, how good these sounded with brass instruments, namely the trumpet, but flute, clarinet. Actually, I think clarinet is a woodwind. Anywho, pardon my ignorance. I've had a long night with not much sleep last night. We had a few calls. But those instruments just really excelled with this. But my friends, that is it for my review of Audiofly's one step under their flagship IM, that is the AF180mk2s, which go for, like I said, approximately $370. Obviously US. I think it's 650 Australian dollars. But it'll be linked in the description for you to check out yourself. If you have any questions or if there's anything I may have missed that you would like me to clarify more, go into more detail about, or just a general curiosity of whatever, hit me up in the comments down below. I not only enjoy reading and replying to all of you, I truthfully look forward to it. But, my friends, that is it. As always, my name is Army-Firedawg. It has truly, truly been a pleasure, but most importantly, and please ask if you all, my friends, stay safe.